There's
See all
your
of you
music
on
history
here.
lesson.
Thanks, Dave. So Monty's on his way. He's going to be about 10 minutes late, and Blair just texted me to say, Blair Calloway, that he's getting on. So Missy said she can't hear anything. Do you have your audio on, Missy? Are your speakers on? Can everyone else hear me? Can you nod? Those of you who don't have just your picture up? Okay, good. Just making sure. Hopefully this will be a little easier to hear than the last meeting we had with like 100 of us on Google Meet. So I see Josh's finger. That's good. Good to see your finger, Josh. Hi, Ryan Yale. How's Texas?
Texas is warm.
Yeah, I bet. I bet it is.
I miss you all. Hope you're all well.
Oh, we miss you too. Thanks, Ryan. And for any of you guys that don't know, Ryan, for his doctoral project, is that the right term, Ryan?
Yeah, it was my final project.
Yeah, his final project for his doctorate, he was the one who did the comprehensive history of ASBDA that we've now put into our new history book. So it's pretty exciting. So big thanks to him. Yes, Carol's got hers right there. Yay. All right. Okay, well, I see Blair is here, and it's about 7:07. So I'm just going to read. I wrote it down so I wouldn't forget, but we've got a couple of norms for this just to make it go easier so that while we're all on here, we can get accomplished what we want to get accomplished. First of all, like most of you already, your microphones should be on mute when you're not speaking, which is what you've done already. If you have something to add, please either raise your hand physically, or for those of you who are savvy with Zoom, under participants, there's a raise your hand button. So when you do that, we'll call on you to speak. And if I don't see you, Blair Calloway, who's here now from Georgia on the meeting, is going to call on you. And we want to try to keep our comments at first till about a minute or so, so that we can all get a chance to speak and give our input without it taking 10 years to do so, okay? And then once you've been called on to speak once, let's make sure everybody else who wants to have a turn to speak can speak. And then if no one else wants to speak, if you have something else to say, then we'll call on you again. Does that make sense? That's fair, right? Good. Thumbs up, yeah? Good. Awesome. Okay, so I wrote this down so I wouldn't forget. Thanks for being here tonight, because as you know, the executive board is happy that you're willing to come together with us so we can have a unified voice during this uncertain time. And I hope you've had time to look through the documents that I shared with you on Google Drive. As you probably have read, the ABA, along with other people, other MEAs and CBDNA, have written very cohesive plans that are many things that we have questions about, from anything from classroom configuration to scheduling to blended instruction to recruiting to safety and sanitation to advocacy, all that stuff. Very great things out there already. So some things to think about before we start our discussion is, number one, do we need to reinvent the same document? Or do we simply endorse and stand with our fellow band organizations? And if so, do we want to go for what is missing? What plans may we need to focus on, such as social emotional wellness of our children and connections and things of that sort? So that being said, I didn't come to you to preach to you. It's your turn to talk. So that's how I'm going to start the discussion. So would anyone like to start? Any hands? Anyone?
Hey, Suzanne,
Okay.
this is Blair. I'm trying to look at the participant list and the video, so I can't see everybody. So does everybody know how to use the hands? And actually, Kathy has hers up first, so we can go with her. If you're looking at the participant list, you can say where it says raise your hand. So Suzanne, Kat up first.
Raise your hand. Yeah, right. Okay, Kathy, go ahead.
I think that there's been a lot of good research and discussion and contributions to this topic from a lot of different directions. And I've read a lot of it, and I think that there's a lot of good stuff out there, and I think it's starting to repeat itself. And I also think that some of it's going to end up being dated before it's even finished, depending on what we talk about. So I think that it would be an awesome idea for ASBDA to just take a look at those and decide if we agree with them, which I think, I do, most of it, and then possibly contribute in a way that's different from what I've seen from CBDNA and ABA and some of the other organizations that have really done some. Our state organization did the same thing. Yours probably did too. They all say just about the same thing. These are the kinds of scenarios we might see and all that kind of stuff. And I think ASBDA has some wisdom and some philosophy that might be awesome to add. What I found that is missing from all those documents, how we can get our kids in touch with what they really love about music, and that's the aesthetic, the part that's their soul, the part that's filling their heart with the joy that music is. And that's where I've struggled with the online version of teaching, and that's where I think that maybe we could gather up some of our collective wisdom and contribute that way. Thank you.
Right. Thank you. Suzanne, next up is, excuse my pronunciation, Brunger iPad. Brunger, you're next.
Yeah, good call.
Yes. Go ahead, Job.
Well, and I agree with Catherine. I think that if we try to add on the research, because NBA, ABA, Music for All, CBDNA, that they've all done all of that already. What I would like to see us try to do is like, okay, all that information's on there. Let's take all that and let's actually put it into practice, or here's how we would put it into practice, because I feel like that patch, it doesn't exist right now. It's just like, here's all the studies. Okay, great. I don't think we should add to the studies. Let's add to how we're going to implement that into our schools with our children.
All right. Thank you. Next up will be Angelo Cortica. Angelo, it's been a while since I've seen you, but welcome.
So yeah, first of all, I'd like to third the emotional concerns. I think that's really important. Me and a couple other local band directors were trying to brainstorm that the other night, and it's going to be hard to recreate that stuff. So working on that as a team would be awesome. I personally freaked out when this all happened, and I started researching like crazy. I created this nice document. I busted my butt over the weekend, only to find out that UIL had released something exactly like what I worked on the Monday before, and nobody told me about it. So I'd done all this work to find that it had already been done. I think what the world needs right now is, like you guys said, a way to implement this stuff. And what would be really, really helpful is some boilerplate language, copy and paste, and then change a few things to fit our programs. So like the UIL document is pretty good when it comes to that, but it's awfully Texas specific. And what I'm planning on doing for my administration is taking that document, using it as boilerplate language and making it Ohio specific. But if we had some national language that would cover everybody, that we could then move to our programs, or even at a state level, I think that would be a very useful tool for band directors. You know, whether you're doing marching band, concert band, jazz, the size of your programs are all going to be very different. So leaving those variables in the document for people to change, that would be a real good hands-on thing we could probably create together.
All right, thank you. Travis, you're up.
What everybody said so far is exactly right. And like Kathy said, all the studies that we're reading, we're all kind of arriving at the same place. And like we mentioned last night in our meeting, the problem affects us all. It's the same problem, but the solution is not one size fits all. And what I've read in these studies, especially the ABA one, it seems very limited in scope. And in my opinion, I've thought about it since last night, what's missing is options. You know, instead of giving us one solution, why don't we present a couple of different solutions? Because what may work here may not work somewhere else. But collectively, we certainly could come up with 2 or 3 options for directors to carry into the fall.
All right. Thanks, Travis. Is there anybody that I know some computers don't have the raised hand feature. If I'm on my school computer, I can't. Does anybody would like to speak that doesn't have the raised hand? You can just wave at us, and everybody help me find, because I can't see everybody in time. Carol, can you see anybody with a raised hand? There we go, Aaron. Sorry, there you go, Aaron. Sorry, I see you and your hand up.
No, that's okay.
Suzanne,
I
Aaron.
just decided. I guess one thing that I feel like a lot of the documentation does is it gives a lot of recommendations for ideal circumstances. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like having some sort of, you know, under ideal circumstances, this would be great. And of course, we're going to split everybody into smaller groups and we're going to do all this stuff. You know, I worry sometimes that schools with fewer resources are not going to be able to implement that many of these suggestions, as excellent as they are. I wonder if we should have a plan B or at least another way to help people with limited resources feel like they have something they can take to their administrators and say, here's what we can do. Does that make sense?
Very much. I think you're right on the money there. I've discussed that with several people. I think that's, Suzanne, I'm hopefully not taking words out of your mouth, but I think that's one of the reasons we're here tonight, is to make it applicable to we can't take that one or two documents and fit everybody into it.
Right.
All right.
So,
thank you very much. Go ahead. Yeah, finish up.
Oh, no, I just wonder if, you know, even if it was just a Google document where everyone's able to dump things that we can share out or something like that, so that people can find, you know, a sorted list of things for their scenario. You know, I have 245 students. I'm the only teacher and I teach in 3 buildings. What can I do? You know what I mean? If we could just sort that, so that it's really a useful tool and not just a list of ideals or things to strive for.
All right. Thank you, Aaron. I can see Suzanne writing that down. So, and we want a lot of ideas. Val, you're up next. Val?
I think this is where our ASBDA, being a smaller organization, can really come into play here, because we're small enough to work with each other and not lose it in a vastness of thousands and thousands of members. And as Aaron was talking, I was thinking maybe we could appoint, you know, a couple of people in those different kinds of situations, a couple of people that work at big schools like Travis's, and maybe some people that have worked at small schools that have, you know, one band director for 5 through 12 or 6 through 12, or those that have to do even more than that, like choir. But maybe the one document is a better idea. But I think it has to be done quickly. And I think we need to get that out to our membership if we're going to do something like that. I love that idea of a shared document where people can just dump ideas into it as fast as we can. I don't know.
All right. Thank you very much. James, you're up next.
Hello, everybody. James Doherty from North Carolina here. My current role is with district leadership as a arts coordinator. And I can tell you from my experience and what I believe is happening in a lot of school districts is school districts themselves don't know what they're going to be doing next year. So they're not to the point yet where they're going to be able to help bands. And where ASBDA could be very helpful, I believe, in the conversation is helping any band director, particularly members of ASBDA, know how to talk to their school administrators about, these are ideas that I have for how my program fits into next year, and come to the table with ideas and advocate early. Because most states and school districts, even though some plans have been released on a state level, we are very far away from implementation at a district level. And if band directors don't come to the table now with ideas, we're going to be told what to do instead of being asked to be a part of the solution. So having several different ideas about how your classes could look, several ideas about how in class versus remote learning will look. And I know I've seen the CBDNA and the ABA documents, and they've got some great ideas there. And I agree that there's no one solution that's going to work for everybody, but encouraging members to say, this is how you need to approach your administrator in your district about, I want to make sure my program is going well. These are some ideas I have. Can I be a part of the discussion when we get ready to schedule? Can I be at the table when we're making decisions about who's going to be on what day? And I think that's really important, especially the scheduling piece. Maybe that's probably the most critical thing, because if it's going to be an 8AB day, the director needs to be there to say, I need these kids on this day and these kids on this day, or you're going to get all kinds of crazy confusions later. Thank you all.
James, that's great. I actually was talking to my principal today, and he is an all or nothing. We're either going to be in school or out of school. He does not want to do any of the modified schedules. Now, that may change as things go, but I think everybody I've talked to, you've got to get to your administrator now. And the first thing mine always asks me is, do you have a solution? So don't walk in there without some ideas. And maybe that's what we're going to help with tonight. Hey, Rick, how you doing? You're up next.
Hey, it's good to see everybody. Rick Katzman from Michigan. Hi, guys. I want to go back to something that Suzanne kind of said at the beginning. I wonder if we shouldn't look at this issue as, and I've read, and I'm sitting here reading, I have 2 laptops up. So I'm reading ASBDA, what our statement is of, statement of position and those sorts of things. I think we have to prove, or not prove, but we have to remind everybody why we're relevant to begin with. And I'm wondering, Suzanne mentioned how what we do impacts the social and emotional learning of children, as well as the academic or the technical, or in terms of how we teach and what we teach in terms of instrument learning and that sort of thing. The things that I'm reading and the things that I'm hearing and the conversations I'm having with people is that when children are able to come back into school in whatever schedule it is or capacity it is, that trying to help students socially and emotionally try to come together, that's kind of the thing that I've struggled with a little bit, is maintaining that the group mentality. Kids want to be a part of something that's bigger than themselves, which is very difficult, I've found, to try to do over a Zoom meeting or something like that. And so I'm wondering if ASBDA, as ASBDA, we could come up and just with a reminder or some sort of statement of purpose, or just to reconfigure the statements that we already have a little bit, just to be sure that everybody understands that music learning, band in particular, is relevant for kids more so than ever. And maybe you're not hearing that in where you are across the country, but those are some of the things that I'm hearing a little bit here in Michigan. And maybe as a national organization, we could come up with something that starts with that, and then create everything else, like everybody has said, is terrific. That kind of place where we can all go to find ideas and that sort of thing. But that statement of purpose, I think, is something we want to think about.
Thank you, Rick, very much. Yes. All right. Next is Wayne, and then we'll go to Carol. All right. Wayne, you're up.
Thank you. Wayne Spletstozer from Connecticut. I was talking to my administrator the other day, and I could see the blood draining from his face when he realized the scheduling problems that band is going to cause a school. So he asked me, what are other schools doing? And I said, we don't know yet. So I think it might be good for us also, once we get into the process of finding out what other schools are doing, is collect all that information, maybe have a template, school size, band size, how many teachers, and keep that stuff so other members can see what other districts, states are doing. Because as my principal says, we can't do anything until the state guidelines come down.
Yes, thank you so much. That would be very helpful, because that's going to be different again, like you said, size of school and where you are. All right, Carol, you're next, and then we'll go to Ryan after Carol.
Thank you, Wayne, because that what you said is a lot of what I wanted to say. The document that Josh Runger suggested we create and share. If it is in a spreadsheet form, possibly it could include a separate sheet, one behind the other, to track what each of our schools or districts are doing. And with those very things that Wayne suggested, I think that's a great idea. And I would suggest that we have in ASBDABand.org in our Google Suite, we have the place to easily create that and share it with each other. And I hope that we'll use it.
Ooh, you froze up. All right, thanks, Carol. If you want to complete that later, let me know, because I think you froze up there. All right, Ryan Howell, if you want to join us here.
Sure, thanks. Hi, I'm Ryan. I'm from Honolulu, Hawaii. It's 1 o'clock here, so I'm actually at school collecting instruments. So I'm kind of going in and out. But and I really agree with what a lot of you are saying. And then one thing I was thinking about is if we had like a separate, once we collect this information, like a concise thing that band directors could give to their administrations, like you know, because like this, I'm sure this is going to be like a lot of information, and the principals are going to have to like really go through a lot of it. But if there's a concise thing, why the programs, or like these are different things that would work in schools, you know, that we can give to our administrations, that might be prudent to explore. Thank you.
Yes, yeah, that's great. All right. No hands are up. All lines are open. Who's next? If I'm not seeing you, raise your. Oh, Angela. Anybody else before we go back to Angela, and we'll get back to you. I promise. If you can't raise your hand, why don't you just unmute and start talking right now? It'll be a good chance to get in. Okay. So go ahead. Who's that?
I was just going to say, you know, we're talking about the problems and stuff, and it is different based on the size of your program, where you are, or what size your school is. But at the end of the day, I think there's 3 main areas of concern. How to reduce bioaerosols from passing from person to person. That includes talking and playing, keeping the equipment disinfected, stands, instruments, and how you manage that. And then how we negotiate our local laws and social distancing guidelines. So the first 2 we have in common, and we can solve that problem together. And I think the only difference there is going to be regarding your facility and the size of your program. So that stack will look a lot shorter when we're looking for solutions to problems, because you know, we're solving the same problem across all the bands for those 2. The third one is where we run into the myriad of different answers. Like the state of Ohio has actually done an okay job. We're familiar with what phase 1 of reopening is. Our administration is down, and I actually got in with the football coaches because I knew that this was going to be happening soon. We're a big football school. And so I said, hey, just include me in on that meeting. Well, they're accepting a plan from each sports whatever you want to call it, sports team that's due by June 1st. And if I hadn't gone to that meeting, I wouldn't have this plan in with them, and they might be using my parking lot, using the same entrances of the building. And what they're going to do is put together a schedule that encompasses all the school's activities. So whoever was saying we got to get in there now, yeah, you got to get in there now. You need to contact your principal. You need to have a plan for how you want to use the building and how you're going to solve those other 2 problems, and present it to them right off the rip. I think Scott Lang made that point really well last Friday in his webinar. But yeah, I think what we're talking about, this isn't going to be so big. We're alluding to like a lot of different variants and the problems, but really the bioaerosols and the instrumental hygiene, we have a lot in common there, and how that looks for your programs, I think will be simpler than the state laws. And maybe we break it down by state, since we do have our regional chapters for that third component, and keep that separate. Just my 2 bits.
All right, thank you, Angelo. Suzanne, do you want to jump in for a second? Or Carol, you want to finish up what you were saying before you froze up? Go ahead, and then we have Val again after you, Carol, all right? Carol?
Okay, there we go.
There.
I'm not sure where you lost me before, but I think it probably was already said by someone else. Does anyone know if any other organization is tracking, like what we're talking about, tracking what different schools or districts are doing, like what Wayne suggested that I followed up with? If no one else is already doing that, we might even consider opening it to a wider group of people and allowing any band director anywhere to submit the information. And like Angelo says, it needs to include the different parameters to describe different sizes of schools, different types of schools and locations, so that it could be sorted in that manner, and one could find what could be applicable to them. So everybody knows that. Put your hand up if anybody else is already doing it. That's all I want to say.
All right. Thanks, Val. You up?
I was just going to say that I think what Angelo said was really great, although I'm not sure I agree, because I just think about the problems myself that I'm going to have. My band room is small. We have a ton of kids. I don't know where we're going to go. I don't know how I'm going to get more room. So I think if we had, and on top of that, Wisconsin, we can't even go in our schools till after June 30th, if then, but we're closed and through June. So I think that'll be interesting, but maybe we could use a Google form that could then, doesn't that dump into a spreadsheet, Carol? That people could fill out, the size of their program, how much space they have, what their concern is, and then we could come up with as many ideas as we can about how we can help that, how anybody can get help.
That's exactly how we would do it, with a Google form that feeds a spreadsheet.
All right. Yeah,
We
I
have that
appreciate that. Aaron, you want to come?
You know what?
Go ahead. I'm
I
sorry.
would say
I talked over somebody.
our Google Suite is very powerful, and we have capacity to do that. We could do that tomorrow. Make a Google form that we can send out to the membership and say, listen, fill this in, start. But anyway, go ahead. I'm sorry. I'm just thinking and thought I would throw that out there.
No, that's fine. Dave, I'll get you in just a second. All right. I was talking to my principal today, and everything I came up with and talked to him about, he was just like, Blair, we have no ideal right now. He said, I'm glad you've got your ideals ready, but we can talk to him about it, but there's no way to go about it right now. But at least the conversation's there, and I think that's important. All right, Aaron, you want to say another word, and then we'll go to Dave.
Sure. You were talking about whether or not another organization has kind of taken this up, and I don't know. I would imagine there's a lot of overlap between us and the NBA, but they're the only other group that I'm seeing kind of an equal amount of conversation and communication from. So it seems like it would be really good if we could get in touch with their higher ups and maybe coordinate. That might be a place where we would be able to reach more people, and they've already been contributing to research on aerosols and all of that stuff. It seems like we're kind of on the same page there. And Brian's got maybe something to say about that.
All right, Dave, and you're up next. Dave Albert.
Thanks. Hi, everybody. Great to see you all from Raleigh, North Carolina. So James Doherty just made a few comments, and he said, he just texted me and said, hi, Dave, I've got to jump off this meeting to join another. But he wanted to say something else. So I'm speaking on behalf of James. Another thing he wanted to suggest was CA is interested in being a supporting organization of the NAFME advocacy statement that was released today. There are over 52 organizations endorsing the statement, including the NEA and the National School Administrators Associations. That really addresses the social emotional connection that was mentioned on the call. So Suzanne, that would be something I would suggest that you might want to look into. And
I
I bet James would have a whole lot more. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I've already emailed them to see how we can be, a part of that.
Great.
So yes, I did that today.
Great. Well, that was. I just want to make sure James's voice got heard on that one. Thanks, guys.
Okay, just to kind of maybe bring some more conversation into it. We were talking earlier how, a lot of things have been written in research has been done, but what can we do to help those band directors out there that maybe these items from ABA and CBDNA and all that does not apply to? And y'all have come up with some really good ideas, but there's more that haven't talked yet. Feel free to kind of say what's on your mind, because we'd like to get as many ideas of what you're thinking, because you're the people we're going to be helping or wanting to help, or the people in your area. Or I thought last night, young band directors. I mean, a lot of us that have been 20 plus years probably know how we're going to do it at our school if we're allowed to. But some of the younger band directors are probably just going to be floundering out there, and we don't want to lose them. Right, Chad? Yes, please come on and talk.
Yeah, Chad Allard from Iowa. And great conversation on here. Really appreciate it, and made me think some more. I think our first step is, we got to have a advocacy statement, and maybe we can join what some of those other organizations had said, but get that out there that yes, music is important. We have to have this in our schools. You can't take it away from us. And I guess the biggest thing for me after that would be is scheduling. Is what is this gonna look like? And in Iowa, all the schools are doing a return to learn plan that they have to submit by July 1st. And so we're not going to really know until a little bit later really what school's going to look like for us. And I can't really determine what we're going to do for marching band until we really know what the schedule is going to be like. So I think some kind of document that has a lot of suggestions on how you can do it with this certain plan if you're going, every other day, or half your school comes one day, or whatever it is, and how we can make that work. And then just a clearinghouse, if we can, from Iowa, here's what people in Iowa are doing, maybe a document for that, and then for all the other states that are involved with ASBDA. That's where I'm at right now.
Thank you, Chad. And I do think scheduling is going to be one of the biggest things of all this for us if we get to school. All right, Terry, yes, come on in. You're next.
Hi, it's Terry Speck from Minnesota. Our state music educator, that's the state NAFME part, recommended not only, obviously circle the wagon with your department and talk to your administrator, but also to contact your state Department of Education, because I think, well, at least in Minnesota, that's where I feel we're getting a lot of information, or at least the administrators will be getting a lot of information from as far as how to proceed, and at least in our state. So that might be another place as we're sharing information that we want to look towards, advocacy for, at the state level for your Department of Education.
Right. All right. Thank you very much. Bob Gibson.
Hey, how you doing? Bob from Ohio. Just throwing in the idea that as we're reinventing, as everybody's reinventing a new normal, band may not look like bands always looked. It may be, if you're on an AB schedule, maybe woodwind ensemble, maybe we're going back to some chamber music, maybe depending on if you'll ever get a chance to be a full ensemble in the area, depending on the size of your group. But maybe it's a good opportunity to revisit those earlier days of chamber music, trios, small ensembles, and get that started, and solos. And that's an opportunity to keep the kids going if you can't do large group ensembles. Just a different thought. Just trying to keep keep us in the presence, because if they simply say band or no band, well, we could do small ensembles on this day. We could do this. We can do parts. We may not look like we used to, but it's there. So just a thought.
Thank you, Bob. Jay, you're up. You need make sure you unmute your. There you go.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. Sorry about that. I'd like to dovetail. Excuse me. I'd like to dovetail on what Bob just said. If you're going to be dealing with your administration, you've got to be thinking in terms of an administrator and the administrator is looking for. And what we need to do is come to the administrator and say, this is what we can do for you. This is how you schedule. And I think that they would be tremendously grateful for that. There have been some fantastic conversations that I've seen on Facebook. For example, one thing that was brought up in a conversation yesterday was the discipline. The person who started the thread said, has anybody ever actually talked to children? Does anybody know how they behave? Because the way these plans are going forward, it seems like you're living in la-la land. You can be going through all these fantastic plans to keep everybody distanced, and you can predetermine what that might be through research or by state decree. But the fact of the matter is you're dealing with a traffic problem, and even though the band, the band rehearsal may have gone well, going into the band room and going out, that may go right down the toilet because the kids will be all on top of each other and punching each other and basically behaving like kids. So you plan for your traffic, and you've got a plan for how kids are going to behave, including somebody who maybe doesn't want to ask, but that's a different problem. Again, when you come to the administrator, you've got to think like an administrator. This is what I can do for you. This is what's possible. This is how we're going to handle, this is how we're going to handle the traffic. This is how we're going to schedule it. Something, and I've been very, very happy to see this in the Iowa recommendations from our Department of Health, which is a concern not only for the safety of the students, but also a safety and well-being of the staff, the faculty and staff, particularly older faculty, particularly immunocompromised faculty. And I was very happy to see that there was a concern for that as well. So finally, last thing I was going to say is that there's some fantastic things being posted online. Just earlier today, a band director who is teaching English in a school in Vietnam showed his rehearsing. And they had commandeered the gym, and they were quite separated. But as Whitwell once posted in a plan for a revolutionary approach to seating, actually the band benefits from a certain amount of cubic feet per student. And when you actually separate people, the clarity in the ensemble is incredible. One year I had a smaller group where we were actually able to implement that, and I couldn't believe how easily I actually hear everybody. So there are benefits to that, and I wanted to be able to download the picture of that group in Vietnam, except that it wasn't shareable, and so I wasn't able to do it. But the fact is that this is something that can be done. So one thing that I'd like the ASBDA come out with, I have seen a lot of different recommendations as far as cubic area per child. If you look at Wenger says well, to plan for this amount of cubic footage per child when planning a new facility. But then there are some studies online that I'm sure almost everybody has seen where it shows the amount of disturbance of the air around who's singing or playing, and it's surprisingly very little. Even somebody who's singing full bore, there's not much disturbance until you're practically right on top of, say, a candle, which would be used to measure the disturbance. And then, so there are the acoustic considerations, there's the actual, as people have been saying, aerosol considerations, there's the, whatever the state and creed, well, I don't care what you guys say, it's gonna be 6 feet or nothing because that's what the state says. So I'd like to see, from the ASBDA, some standardization as far as, well, this is the minimum per child, minimum space per child, and this would be an ideal space per child. And these are the sort of things that can be offered by the typical band program. And these are some possibilities for scheduling. But as Bob and were saying, until the states say, well, this is how it's going to be approached, whether it's all back in the building, it's all going to be online, it's going to be a hybrid, we're spitballing. So if we can come up with ideas for scheduling first, and then they could say, well, Oh, and the last thing that I wanted to bring up, and I won't hog it up anymore. I don't know how many of you are familiar with Dick Grunow from the Eastman School of Music, who is a disciple of Edwin Gordon's theories of music teaching. And one soapbox that Grunow's been on is he says, you know what, I am sick and tired of justifying the place of music in the curriculum based on the backs of other curricula. If it can be accomplished elsewhere in the curriculum, why are we justifying that? When have you ever heard of somebody say, take history, it'll help you with your math problems. Or take English, it'll help you with your science. Nobody does that. And when you talk about the benefits of music, you have to ask yourself if that can be duplicated elsewhere. In many cases, it can. Grunow's insistence was, why don't we insist on what is unique to music, which is critical listening? That's not duplicated anywhere else in the curriculum. And with the visual arts, they teach you to see things that you never saw before. We teach you to hear things you never heard before. And that's unique to music. So before I agree with Lang, yes, the socio-emotional portion of it is very, very important. But you know, there are other areas that cover that as or else. I am done. Bye.
Thank you, Jay. A lot of good things there, and some, especially some there at the end, we discussed in some earlier conversations I've had with some people. All right, Suzanne, do we have a time limit that we were shooting for, or I mean, we still have open to some people to talk.
An hour. Yeah, we're going to try to hold it to an hour, but if we go a little longer, that's fine. And Monty has his hand up, so I think he has something to add.
Okay. All right, and Monty, go ahead. And again, if I can't, I'm watching the participant list, so Monty, maybe you can look for people that are waving. So Monty, go ahead.
Okay, Monty Dunham, past president, Wisconsin. I just want to suggest, and I missed the first 15 minutes because I can't tell time and I went for a walk. So sorry. I just want to suggest that our statement, and maybe you've already said this, so slap me down and tell me stop. But the statement should say, number one, we are fully in support of the statements already laid out by ABA, CBDNA, and others. Second, we strongly encourage that all music teachers are at the table with their administrator with any plans going forward. And third, that we advocate strongly that in any capacity, it's possible to hold large ensemble rehearsals. You define large. 5 is large to some people. But in any capacity for the mental and social and emotional well-being of our students in our program, that ensemble rehearsal time in a group at whatever capacity we come up with is crucial. And the reason I want to say it that way is because I can point to each one of you, and you're all going to probably have a different scenario in the fall. But as long as we operate within a mission statement and within a parameter that we believe this is crucial, we'll probably all experience this together. It's all going to change by July anyway. But if, number one, just we fully agree with ABA, CBDNA, Scott Lang, and encourage our principals and superintendents to view those documents as we share them with them. Number two, we have to be at the table with our administrator and planning these things out. And third, just simply, and you guys can all just, veto my plan here, but third, simply put, we value that ensemble experience at such a level that it has to be part of the curriculum in whatever way possible. Yes, I know you may not start the year at school. Fine. I don't want to nuts and bolts it. I just want to say that's crucial because the nuts and bolts are going to change. Done. Thanks.
All right, thank you, Monty. I really feel like you pulled together a lot of the things that were said tonight. So we're going to do Travis and then Ryan. All right, so let's do Travis and then Ryan. You'll be after him. And then Suzanne, you want to talk now or wait? All right, Travis, go ahead.
I wanted to touch on something real quick. I've been very fortunate over the last month to be in direct conversation with administrators on a weekly basis, sometimes daily, about the summer and moving into the fall. In Mississippi, we're a right to work state, and I know that's not the same everywhere. But I asked the question about staff who have pre-existing conditions or who are susceptible to COVID-19 coming back to work. And the response I got was most districts are going to require their teachers to sign a waiver releasing responsibility of the school district before they come back to work. So that way the school district can't be sued. And if a teacher physically come back due to pre-existing conditions, they would have to file it under FMLA. And once that runs out, it runs out. So there will be other states like us, and a lot of our directors may be affected by that. So I'm just putting that out there. That's what I've already heard. But to piggyback on Monty, just a couple of things. I love the idea of ASBDA putting ideas together of things we've heard. And as Val said, put it in different scenarios based on school situation. Obviously, we can't do every situation. That would be impossible. But just to give a few options that might be applicable for our membership and others. And the 5 points that I have really hit home with my administrators: number one, access to students, which includes scheduling, but being able to have access to our students, that's primary. Number two, accountability is part of the curriculum. Instead of just the core subjects receiving credit for what they're giving, and then everything else is pushed off to the side. Because as soon as that impression is given, then participation of our students, especially low end, is going to be next to none. Number three, and this is directly applicable to our low achieving students, is equity and equality considerations. And that's very broad in scope. And students having access to instruments. You know, every study says that we can't share instruments anymore. There's going to be some school districts that can't do that. So where does the school come up with money to make that happen? So that's a consideration. If we're online, even if it's a hybrid, what about students that may not have computers or internet access at home? So that's something that has to be in there. Number four, we've already talked about social and emotional aspects of music. And then number five, beginners have to be at the forefront of our conversations and our actions. Otherwise, we're going to have an entire generation of music education lost. So those are my 5 non-negotiables that I would love to see as part of our plan.
Thank you, Travis. Ryan, you're up.
Good evening. Ryan Yale, Texas A&M University Commerce. First of all, I'd like to just throw out that the CBDNA has had almost weekly, if not bi-weekly, meetings at open forums for different directors across the country, and have been a vast wealth of knowledge. The athletic band forum begins tomorrow and Friday. They are holding things publicly on Facebook. So if you are not a CBDNA member, you can still attend. And obviously COVID and dealing with the pandemic is going to be a big issue. And there will be several sessions during that. And I'm sure there'll be some communication about the CBDNA study that was just produced. I'm part of a pandemic contingency plan committee at the university where I work. And along with myself and some of the other ensemble directors have been charged with coming up with contingency plans for the fall for each of the ensembles and each of the secondary music education classes, the org classes, the instrumental methods classes, conducting classes. And for each of those, on top of all the ensembles, we have 4 scenarios: full in-person classes, fully online, beginning online and transitioning to digital, and hybrid. So I'm thinking about each of those and talking about, what happens if we can only do chamber music in the fall and do large ensembles in the spring? What do we do with marching band? If we can't participate as a marching band at the football games, are we going to be a pep band? Does color guard need to exist for that particular season? I mean, these are other things that I know are not just unique to the university setting, but if you're not part of the discussion already with your administration, I highly suggest that you and your fine arts colleagues get involved and come up with some contingency plans. We already have developed a 26-page document, and I know that we're farther ahead than other committees at the university and such. So I just wanted to throw those things out there, and again, invite you to the CBDNA forum tomorrow and Friday for those of you who'd like to attend. hear some of that information.
Thank you, Ryan, very much. I know some of the university people I talk to here are doing the same thing that you're doing there, because they've asked them to come up. And I know just like anything else, band people, when we're asked to do something, we go ahead and do it. So, and I know at our school we're always ahead of the other groups. So all right, Rick. Enough of my banter. Here we go, Rick Catherman again.
Ryan, I apologize. Did you say how to join? Did you just go to the CBDNA website for that symposium that starts tomorrow? Because I was a part of that. I watched that webinar whenever it was last week. But how do we get there?
You should be able to just find it on Facebook if you look up CBDNA on Facebook. If not, I can toss out a link and pass it on either through Suzanne or Linda. But you should be able to go to their Facebook page and join in the proceedings tomorrow and Friday.
All right, thank you. Anything else, Rick? Is that okay? Got it. Okay. Suzanne, at 7:56, do you want to wrap some things up, or maybe if anybody else has something they'd like to say? Rick, you still have your hand up. Do you want to say anything? Okay, good. I didn't want to not let you have that chance. Suzanne, do you want to take it from here, or?
Say, if no one else has anything to add, that so what I'm hearing you say is that you would like to have a mission statement stating this is what we believe that's out there, and then we need to start this on our Google Suite where we can start coming up with scenarios and best practices and what's happening in each state and scenario that we can all collectively pull from so that we can help support each other. As well as, younger teachers who aren't necessarily members of our organization yet, be able to help them as well, because I think that's really important. We talked about that a lot last night as well. What about our younger teachers who've been teaching 1 or 2 years? I mean, this is not what they signed up for. We need to be able to help them and mentor them at this situation as well. So anybody have any ideas on that as well before we let it go? And by the way, this is being recorded just because I took like 4 pages of notes, but we wanted to make sure we had it recorded so we could go back and watch it again, just so we have everyone's thoughts, as well. Anyone? Crickets. Great idea. Thank you. Someone just texted me and said great idea, so thanks. Then I would guess.
Ryan. Oh,
yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead, Suzanne.
No, I was let Ryan talk. That's fine.
Hi. No, I just before, and I had to run to another meeting too, but one thing that me and my colleague were kind of working on too is like for sanitation things, and I don't know if other people have seen this, but like UV light wands. I don't know if anyone's researched this or but we picked some up. It's supposed to kill 99% of all viruses and germs. And then you just kind of, so like for percussion, the people that share things, between classes, just quickly going over it, it's supposed to kill viruses and germs. And there's more research being done about it, but just to let you guys know, you might want to check a look at it and, for your programs or something to put on the websites.
Thank you, Ryan. And see, that could be something we could do a collecting of as well. Maybe we make areas in our Google document for things like that. Sanitation, what's working for you? Ryan can put, UV lights and maybe give ideas of brands and where they got it and things of that sort. Yes, Linda. Linda, go.
She needs to unmute.
There you go.
There. Okay. I've been getting all these articles from everybody, and I've been sending them on to Suzanne. But there are a lot of things in these articles about almost everything we're talking about, the sanitizing and the room sizes and how to do ensembles and all that kind of stuff. There's a lot of information out there. So if you go and investigate some of the professional sites, you'll be able to find a lot of things on there.
Right. Yes. Thank you. And I think maybe if we do that Google document, we can have maybe one of the tabs is links or something like that. All right. Anyone else? Kathy, you want to finish this off?
And Terry
After
Speck,
Suzanne.
Terry Speck raised her hand, so.
Okay, I'm sorry, Terry. I don't see you on my screen. So Kathy's already unmuted, and then we'll do Terry. All right.
That's okay. I just have one little thing to add. I think the idea of presenting the problems that we're facing and then solutions, real life solutions from real people, I think is an awesome idea. And whether our problems are philosophical ones, like how do I get my kids to love this when they're at home, or how do I sanitize my instruments, those are all valid things that we can help each other with. And what we need is a way to connect, which is what ASBDA does. It connects us. That's what music does, you know. And so I think that the actual act of connecting us in a very tangible way will be helpful. I worry also about our young teachers because they're not typically a member of ASBDA. And so how do we gather them up? That might be something we throw out there as a problem, and then we can gather together and solve it. You know, and what my problem is might be different than yours, but then once we see that, I think we can all raise each other up a lot easier, and no one will feel alone. So I just love sitting here listening to all your ideas. I'm just soaking it up. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you. That's great. Terry.
I just wanted to leave with one thought, and I'm having a hard time articulating it, so hopefully you guys can help me. But I think the last thing I want to leave my administration with is that this is a temporary thing. COVID-19 is not going to be with us forever. And whatever it is that we're doing to accommodate that, it should be, and hopefully they're thinking this, but it should have as little adverse effect when what does 2 years from now look like? Because we won't have, hopefully, this issue. I can't imagine that we would. So I guess that would be the last thing that somehow we need to, I don't know if it's part of our statement or just how we approach it, but whatever it is that we do to the band program, we're able to, it will make it better in the long run when we come back, I guess. And again, I'm having a hard time saying what I want to say, but somebody is going to help me with that, I'm sure. Thank you.
Hey, Terry, I think that's awesome because we don't want them to think this is something we can do and want to do, you know, especially if we're at home. I see Carol, and I know Monty wanted to say something. And so, Carol, you want to go first?
One thing we haven't really gotten into tonight that I'd like us to revisit if we have another opportunity to come back together, or if there's a way to share with each other. Some of us spoke amongst ourselves about how, especially for our younger students, they join band first for the social aspect of it, to be part of a group, part of something, and becoming a great instrumentalist is not necessarily their priority until they've been there for a while and fallen in love with that part of it. And how we help them feel that sense of community and the joy in being part of something bigger than what they can achieve individually when we may be seeing them digitally or infrequently is a question that needs to be answered. What kind of things can we do with them to make them feel like they're part of something important? When this is all over, we don't want them to have all quit because this is not really what they joined. And we can't really answer that right now, I don't think, unless we're going to be here another hour. No. So I would like for us to think about that and come back to it. I think that's the missing piece, is that social emotional piece.
Right. And Carol, that's pretty awesome. I really think the critical thing in this for a lot of us is that sixth grade class or that fifth grade class whenever you start. My junior, senior, going to stick with it, but I think that's something we really have to address. Monty.
And I'm just going to suggest that at least for the next month, we consider doing this opportunity to share on a weekly basis. Just so everybody can air things out, maybe hear what else is out there. I'm hearing things, need to be resolved in the near future. And if we're comparing notes more often, on a simple format like this, I think that'd be valuable, and perhaps another way ASBDA can help. All I got.
All right. Thank you very much. Yeah, I think, Suzanne, I'll say one more thing, and then you can finish this up here. Okay, sorry, Sarah, we'll get you. Go ahead, Sarah. I've talked enough. Okay, Sarah?
Okay, never mind. Her hand isn't up. That's okay.
Okay. All right. That's fine. I'll just finish up. I don't know what I was going to say now, so that's probably okay. Suzanne?
No, thanks, Blair. Thanks for all your help tonight. No, okay, so I would like to say that we will have a, thanks for, first of all, for all your input, but I think it'll be safe to say we will have a mission statement out in the next day or so. So we'll work on that. We'll also try to plan another one of these meetings. I don't know what day. I'm going to assume we could probably move days because I'm not sure any of us have a huge calendar that's full of things that we have to do right now. So I agree with Monty when I say we should probably get back together and do this again. Is everybody okay with that? Yes, good. Oh, I like the thumbs up. Thank you. And Rick gave me his virtual thumbs up too. Thanks, guys. But I can't thank you enough. We as an executive board didn't want to put something out there that we didn't have input, and the fact that you were willing to be here and be part of this is really, it's inspiring, and I appreciate it. So thank you for being here. Yeah, go ahead.
Suzanne, would it be okay if maybe the executive board stayed for about 10 more minutes just to consolidate those things you said? Okay.
I was just going to say that, yes. So
Okay,
thank you.
I'm sorry.
No, you're
Suzanne,
good. No. Thank you. And we'll see you again. I hope to see you all again. Thank you. Bye. It's so good to see you all.
It's good to see faces. I really like that.
Bye, everybody. Bye, my favorite Ryan.
Sarah, I really wanted you to talk. I wish you would have talked. Now she's gone. Sarah, I wish